Well, let's get started. It might just be us this morning. Primal day, just moving around. I have a challenge for you today. The challenge is I'm not really going to be able to complete the challenge because I'll be talking, but the challenge is to breathe through your nose for this whole session. I warned people that I've been reading this book called Breath. That's been like really super interesting, talking about nasal breathing and the value of nasal breathing and sort of the hazard of mouth breathing. I think there was one post about a couple of weeks ago, about the dental thing with mouth breathing, but there's just so much more that goes into it. So with a lower intensity day like this, let's try to breathe through your nose for this entire session. Okay, so just
out through your mouth.
What's that?
Out through your mouth.
Yeah, I think that's generally pretty well accepted. So yeah, in through the nose, out through the mouth, or just out through your nose. Totally up to you. I think the issue with going out through your nose is that it just kind of dries you out more. So if you go in through your nose, out through your mouth, it's probably the best way to do it. Okay, so with that, we're going to start off on our back. Oh, I should say before we get started, if you have something to balance on, grab it. And you may also want something to elevate your heels. So whether it's like a couch cushion or a weight plate or a book or books under your heels, something like that. We are going to be in that squat position a little bit. So I want to make sure that if you need your heels elevated to be able to sit down into a squat, that you're able to do that. For me, the balance beam works as both balance and a heel prop. So grab that before we get started. And then once you're ready, we'll find a space on the floor. And we'll do a little bit of breathing just to start off. Okay. So laying down on your back, feet flat on the floor. Trying to make your spine as long as you can from your tailbone up through the top of your head. So really stretching out. Think about getting that tailbone down away from you, and then situating your head so that the back of your head is on the floor. If you need a prop, right? So if you feel like when you lay down, if you feel like you're setting the top of your head on the floor and your chin is up, just grab a pillow or something to prop your head up on so that you're able to get close to the back of your head being on the ground. One way to help this out is to pick up your hips and push yourself back. So we shift back so those shoulder blades can be flush on the ground. You're almost pulling the skin down your back. And then we're settling into that nice long spine. Shoulder blades lay flush on the floor. And then we're going to breathe into front and sides of your belly. So we take that nice deep breath in through your nose, exhale through your mouth. Let's try, if you put your hands like on your sides, we're going to try to breathe into that whole space. Okay, so not only, if you have your hands on your sides like this, not only should you feel your fingers rising, but you should feel your thumbs being pressed out, even though they're in the back. We want to try to breathe in so that you're pushing your thumbs out. Let's take 3 more nice deep breaths. 2 more. And the last one. And exhale through your mouth. Okay. Now remember, we're going to keep breathing through your nose. Let's pick your hips up. All right, so we'll just lift our hips up just a little bit off the ground. And from here, we're going to start to rock from side to side, one shoulder blade to the other. You can do this with your head on the floor or off. We aren't going to be moving with this today, but if we were to start moving with this, you'd obviously want your head off the ground. But today we're just kind of using it as a warm up, a little bit of rotation in your spine. And we're also starting to use your cheeks. And we're kind of twisting your core in a different way than we usually do. Just shifting side to side. So now we're going to have your hips up. Let's roll to your right shoulder. As you roll to your right shoulder, you're going to push with your left leg and sort of shoot your hips out behind you, right? So it's almost like you're scooting over in bed. So you just pick those hips up, shift your hips over, and then come over to join them. All right, so we're going to pick up again, roll to your right shoulder, shift those hips back, and then bring yourself over to join them. Okay, so it's just sort of you're sort of shifting your weight, right? So we push those hips back. You're going to kind of turn your pocket up towards the ceiling. Right, so then when you roll to your left shoulder, your right leg's going to be doing the pushing. And we just sort of make your way around in the space. You'll probably find yourself going backwards a little bit. I'm going to keep working myself back into the camera here. But we shift just like we were. And then instead of keeping your hips up, you're going to reach back. Right, like you're trying to shoot your hips back away. Roll over to that other shoulder. Push, now we come back. I find one side to be much, much harder than the other. So my pushing to my right is much harder than pushing to my left. It's probably just a imbalance or, whatever you want to call it, but we're just on our back here, shifting your hips. You can make them small, right? So we can just do a little shift here and a little shift there. But we're basically just picking up your hips and moving them to the side. And good, let's roll it over. Remember, we're still breathing through our nose. In the book, they talk about putting a small piece of tape on the lips, like surgical tape or whatever, just as a reminder. But the times that I notice it the most is like walking around outside, especially in the cold. Sometimes it's tough to take all of your breath in through your nose. But it's just a good little reminder, keeping the lips closed. So let's get into this prone position. So on your belly, you're going to leave your ribs on the floor and then work your elbows up under you as much as you can, keeping your ribs on the floor. All right, so here we also want to think about keeping your belly strong. Good tension from your ribs to your belly button. And we're going to open up your chest. So we're kind of looking up and forward. And we'll just hang out here for a second and start to move your shoulders side to side. Just think about ducking one shoulder down, looking over that other shoulder. Keeping your belly strong the whole time. When your belly's strong, when you're in extension like this and your belly's strong, you're protecting your lower back and making sure that the arch or the extension is done with your upper back rather than your lower back. All right, from here, we're going to bring your elbows up under you a little bit more. Now we're going to start to push those shoulder blades down. Push your elbows into the floor, bringing yourself upright. You might notice that as things get tight, especially like in the front, If you're using your core, it becomes a little bit tougher to get a full breath. All right, from here, we're going to go rocking up to all fours and then back onto your toes, or sitting your butt back to your heels, toes curled under. So we're just sitting on top of your heels, getting those knees into some big flexion. So we're not going to put a lot of weight on them yet. And then we're going to walk back forward, back into that prone position with your elbows under you. And we're just going to cycle between those two, sitting all the way back to your heels, stretching out your toes, then walking forward to elbows back on the ground. So just moving back and forth. And on the last one here, we're going to come up to two knees and standing nice and tall on two knees. Let's try to get your posture straightened out here. So that means hips over top of your knees, shoulders over top of your hips. Okay, so we're just getting in here nice and strong, nice tall posture. Right from here, we're going to just sit back on your heels. So now we're putting more of that weight back onto your feet. Toes are still curled under you. Sitting up as tall as you can. And we'll just cycle between those two. So come all the way up. That nice, tall, strong, like posture, like a pillar. And we're just sitting back, resting that weight on your heels, making sure that your heels stay under your butt, not splayed out to the side. Coming up and down. This time as we come up, let's put those shoelaces on the ground. Okay, so now your toes are pointing out the back. Right, and we sit down again. Okay, putting that weight on your feet. So big stretch on the ankles here. You probably feel a big stretch down the top of your foot. You may get some foot cramps that come along with this. Okay, but we're just cycling between like this tall kneeling position and deep kneeling with your feet turned out, or your toes pointing back. All right, let's bring your toes back up under you. Okay, we're sitting back down on top. We're going to go through that sequence as part of our circuit at the end. But here, what I want to do is just a little shift. So I guess you can do this. It's your preference, either toes curled under or feet flat, right? But what we want to do is we're going to be sitting on top of your heels here. We're going to shift your weight off to the side. And if you want to use your fingertips to guide, that works. You're going to shift off to the side. Okay. And actually, I'm going to go the other way so I can face the camera. Right. So we just shift your hips off to the side. It's like putting your hip down on the floor. Then we roll over to the other side and pop back up on top. Right. So all it is kind of rolling off to one side, switching over, and we end up back in that position. Right. So use your fingertips as you need to in the beginning, just to sort of walk yourself through that movement. But ultimately, we want to try to get to the point where we're able to roll off to the side without using hands. Okay, so there's not far to fall here, right? Because your butts should just be a few inches off the ground. But we're just rolling through. Actually, a lot of hip control here, a lot of core control. You want to try to make this movement as smooth and effortless looking as you can. And good. All right, let's go ahead and sit tall. So we're going to find a seated position, legs straight out in front of you. Pulling those toes back toward your chin, sitting up as tall as you can. If having hands behind you helps, use hands. Okay, if you can sit tall with your legs straight, you can do that too. Okay, so just sitting here, nice and tall. You might be getting a stretch down the back of your legs. Okay, if you're not, let's push yourself forward into that little bit of stretch. Remember, pulling your toes back toward you makes a whole different ball game. It keeps that stretch nice and strong. And from there, we're going to bring feet in, sitting cross-legged. This may or may not be a stretch for you. It is for me, but if it's not, that means your mobility is in a pretty good place. All right, let's switch the cross of your legs. So this way should probably feel a little bit more awkward. Maybe it feels a little bit tighter. And we're just getting that stretch on the hips. Let's go back to the first cross. Sometimes it helps to shift side to side, just to change that stretch up a little bit. Helps you settle into the stretch. Remember, we're still breathing through our nose, which should be pretty easy at this point, but when we start moving more, it'll get more challenging. All right, we switched the cross one last time. This is the second side now. And good. All right, let's come up to half kneeling. So that's one knee on the ground. All right, did this in the evening class the other day, but I haven't done it with the morning class, so we're going to give it a shot. All right, there's kind of two ways we can do this. We can turn it into a walk where you're moving forward, or the more challenging part is coming back to where you started. So let's start in tall kneeling and then move to half. So here we're in half kneeling. We're keeping the tailbone tucked down. Okay, so from here, we're going to lean out over this front leg. We're going to slowly transfer the weight to your front leg. Right, so now pretty much all of my weight is on top of this leg. And I'm going to take that knee down to the floor. Okay, so that front knee is rolled onto the floor. Two ways we can do this. We can just bring that back leg through and come up to the half kneeling on the other side. Or after we get down there, right, so I've gone up and over, tap that knee to the floor. We can shift your weight back and come back, which is a tougher skill, kind of depending on your mobility, your hip mobility, how much wiggle room you have in there, right? So for me to do it, I have to sort of turn off to the side, right? So this one's basically pretty much impossible for me if I stay square. But as I go over, I sort of open my hips and almost turn to the side. Okay, and then bringing that foot back. So it's your choice, whatever challenge you like. Either way, we're going to be leaning forward, rolling over that foot, letting your knee fall to the floor lightly. Okay, none of this should be like crashing down onto the knee. Then we either pull that back leg through or we come back to the half kneeling. Let's just work through that on a couple sides here. Remember, still breathing through your nose. This is where the effort comes up a little bit. Your breathing rate will come up a little bit. It's tempting to open your mouth and be breathing through your mouth, but try to keep those breaths coming in through your nose. Just stepping through. If you're stepping through, definitely much tougher to go back. Okay, to tap that knee and return. Okay. And good. Let's take hands to the floor. We'll come into a crawl position here. We're just gonna put a little weight on your shoulders. Pretty much every one of these primal circuits, I want to put weight on your shoulders. But first, let's spread those fingertips out as far apart as you can. It's almost like you're stretching the skin in between your fingers. And see if we can get those hands flat to the floor. Kind of screwing those hands into the floor. You should feel a nice stretch across the skin of your fingers. Good stretch in your wrist. Hopefully no pain. If there's pain in your wrist, then we need to see if you can find a position where there's not, right? Maybe that's moving hands in front of you more. Okay, but from here, let's come pop the knees up off the ground. So now we're pressing those hands into the floor nice and strong. We're in this bear crawl position, but we're not going anywhere just yet. Okay, shift weight side to side on your hands. All right, from here, we're gonna roll over. So this leg, one leg's gonna come under you. Let's pass your right leg under you. And that's gonna allow you to pick up your left hand and flip to the other side. So now we're holding this inverse crawl, or what you would probably like gym class would call a crab crawl position. And we're gonna push the heels of your hands nice and strong into the floor. Again, shifting side to side, just putting different stresses on your shoulders. Trying to straighten the arms. You can move forward and backward here. Okay, whatever works for your shoulders. Forward, backward, side to side. Now let's go right back the way we came. So that means your left hand's gonna come up and over. And as you reach, your right leg's gonna go under you to come back to this bear crawl position. So now we're holding here. We're gonna go the other way. So pick up that left leg, shoot it underneath your body across your midline. That should kind of force you to pick up your right hand. All right, so now we're back to this crab position. Just gonna hang out here for 5 more seconds. And take that right hand up and over. The left leg shoots under you and you're back to the crab bear position. Okay, we're gonna do that one more time. Remember, as your heart rate comes up, we're trying to breathe through your nose. And roll back over to the bear crawl position. One more time, other side. So now we're just putting different forces on your shoulders, different stretches. And one last time, back over to the start. Okay, we're good there. Let's go just a little bit of balance work, and then we're gonna get into a 6-minute circuit, and we'll call it a day. All right, so if you have a beam, great. If not, don't worry about it. You can always position your feet in a narrow stance. All right, so to start, all we're gonna do is move forward. And again, if you're not on a beam, okay, you're just gonna imagine a line on the ground. Okay. Hopefully neither one of you has taken a field sobriety test, but think of a field sobriety test. All right, so walking on that nice straight line if you don't have a beam, but otherwise we're just walking nice and tall. All right, this is where breathing can really contribute to overall balance. Okay, so we want to get as tall as you can. Eyes should be forward, not down. Okay, but we're taking those nice deep breaths. Feeling balanced and strong, everything stacked right up on top of each other as you walk. All right, so let's talk about the turn a little bit. What we're going to do is just basically come up on the balls of your feet and pivot. So we're coming up on the balls of your feet and we turn. It's much easier to do if you're out of shoes, okay, if you don't have shoes on. Okay, well, let's try to turn each direction. So turn one time over your right shoulder, and one time over your left. Okay, but we come up on the balls of your feet. Turn is the most challenging part because everything has to be balanced up nice and tall. may be helpful to exhale as you go. So if you're exhaling, it gives you something else to kind of focus on. And especially if you're blowing out an exhale, you're going to be nice and strong through the midsection for your core. So we want to make sure that part of your body is nice and strong. You're still going to be somewhat flexible, but the stronger you are from the middle out, okay, the better support your limbs are going to have. Okay, good. So now we'll go from just walking. Okay, now we're going to take a step. We're going to crouch down. So you're going to be in this sort of narrow stance. And this one's really easy to do even if you don't have a beam. You're going to be in this nice narrow stance, right? And from here, we're just going to crouch down, sitting on that back heel. Front foot should be flat on the beam. So your back heel is going to be up. Front foot is flat on the beam. We stand back up, take a step. If you're not on a beam, you're going to be taking that step into a nice narrow posture. Then we sit down on top of your heel. Use both feet to stand back up. Okay, so we're going to do a walking lunge here with a really narrow stance. Okay, short step, narrow stance. So as you sit down, think about your front leg helping you lower down. Okay, so that front foot, the one that's flat on the floor, is going to be doing most of the work here. Okay, so pressing that front foot through the floor as you lower down to your heel, pressing it through the floor to stand back up. All right, last little bit here. Now we're going to take that short step into a longer step. So now we're taking a full-blown lunge step where you go forward and have lots of room to tap your knee. I'm just going to do this one off the beam because the beam's not long enough for more than one step. But we're just taking that step. Again, imagining that line on the floor if you need to. As you tap down, your heel should be, or your knee should be right behind your heel. Keeping that upper body nice and strong. Still breathing through your nose. And good, let's relax. Okay. So 6-minute circuit. We're going to do 3 exercises twice each. And we're going to go for a minute each one, right? So I like these longer intervals for this because most of the time it's not as intense a movement. It just gives us some time to work on it. Okay, so first one, we started off the day with this prone position, working back to all fours. Okay, this time for the circuit, we're going to go from prone position, walking back, butt to your heels. From there, we're going to pull knees up off the floor, and we stand. Okay, so we're going from a prone position, lying on your belly, all the way up to standing. And then we go back, we just squat down on those heels, knees go to the floor, and we walk back out. And as soon as your hips hit the floor, we're going to come back up, full control. We just pull those knees up off the ground, coming up to standing. Okay, so we're going to go 1 minute there. Right. Next one, balancing suitcase carry. So we need one weight. All right, you're going to hold that weight down by your side. If you have a beam, great. If you don't, okay, you're just going to almost be going heel to toe. Right, so we're going to go 30 seconds carrying on one side, 30 seconds carrying on the other. Right, and then last part, we talked about maybe needing to prop your heels up here. If you can make it reasonable to sit into a squat position for a minute, we're just going to sit in a squat position for a minute. Okay, if the squat position is really uncomfortable, you can get down there and come back up. Right, so take little breaks, almost like doing reps. We'll get a little stretch and come back up. If you can, we're going to go down and sit into that squat position and just hang out. give yourself a stretch, right? Okay, so those three things, prone to standing, balancing suitcase carry, and then just a squat position for a minute, all right? And we'll go 6 minutes total, 2 times each of those exercises for 1 minute each, right? So let's get down into that prone position. Hips on the floor, elbows underneath you. Okay, we're ready to go here. 6 minutes, working from your belly to a standing position. Okay, ready, and here we go. Again, as we're moving always through the nose, working your way, heels to your butt. Okay, try to do this so that at any point, if someone said stop, you'd be able to stop and reverse direction. All right, so that means we want full control of each part. Most challenging part to control is going to be this, where you're lifting your knees up off the floor. We want to be able to pause at each spot. "20 seconds left. Five seconds left, and we're going to balance. 3, 2, 1, and here we go. We grab a weight. Balancing either on the floor or on a beam. Keeping those breaths going through your nose. 5 seconds till we switch hands. 2, 1, switch it up. You'll notice that weight's going to pull you or change your center of mass. With the balance, it becomes a little bit different. 15 seconds left. Two, one, and here we go. Squat position. Okay, for me to sit there comfortably, I need to prop my heels up, or the other way you can do it is by holding a weight. Okay, so now instead of propping my heels up, I'm just adding a bit of a counterbalance in front. Elbows are just resting on my knees. Again, if sitting at the bottom of this is highly uncomfortable for you, this shouldn't feel like work, right? So if this is really uncomfortable or you're feeling like it's a lot of work, just take little breaks by standing. It'll look like you're doing reps. 20 seconds left. Holding a weight can help to counterbalance you so you can sit back into your heels with flat feet. 10 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Let's go to the floor. On your belly, prone to standing. Still breathing through your nose. Everything is slow and controlled. 30 seconds left. Feet are going to be pretty narrow here because as you put your butt on your heels, you want both heels to be on your cheeks. 15 seconds. 5 seconds. Balancing suitcase carry. Here we go. Try to keep those shoulders level. Five seconds till we switch. And switch sides. Ten seconds left. And down into the squat. Here we go. Last little bit of work here. Again, always through your nose. You can kind of play around with the position of your feet. Without the counterbalance, I wouldn't be able to sit comfortably, right? I would almost need something to hold on to so I didn't roll backwards. Okay, but the counterbalance allows you to sit down a little bit more. It's roughly the equivalent of propping your heels up, right? So it just helps me pitch forward. Yeah. So without the weight, I would definitely roll backwards here, but this is a position that you can get better at. 10 seconds left. 5, 3, 2, 1, and rest. Okay, how'd the nose breathing thing go?
Not bad.
Not bad? Yeah, today there wasn't too much to get your heart rate up today. But yeah, Ted, they were doing all kinds of they talk about breathing less, right? So they were doing all these he was doing all these runs where you take really shallow inhales and long exhales. So that he said that, I don't know, it's just an interesting book. I'll put better thoughts together, but it was more about the importance of carbon dioxide in your body rather than the importance of oxygen. So
wow.
It's interesting, but
That would be an interesting topic for a podcast.
yeah, for sure. I don't know if I could carry the conversation though. I'd have to find somebody. Who is that? Is that Stella?
Yeah, she was working out with us this morning.
Hi, Stella. How'd you do with that?
Good.
You're a kid. I hope you can move around like that. Did you hear your dad grunting through any of that?
No, stop lying.
All right, guys. You have a great day.
Thanks,
And,
Brian.
I'll be in the gym tomorrow, so
Bye.
I don't know who will see you in the morning. You guys have a great day. Enjoy your Thursday.
Thanks, Brian.